Welcome to episode number 1 of the Crash Course Nicotine Withdrawal Survival Guide. That's a long name. Commitment. Let's talk about it. Can I be honest? Okay, so it's never going to be the right time. There's just no perfect time to go through withdrawals. There's always going to be some project you have going on or some event coming up. Sadly, there will never come a day where you just wake up and you're like, I'm done with addiction. Bye. Been a fun few years. It's not going to happen like that. That's not me saying you should just quit tomorrow without preparing or giving it any thought at all. But don't keep letting your brain trick you out of doing what you know you need to do. Because when it comes to addictive substances, your brain has been hijacked and it's not exactly on your side and will tell you anything to rationalize protecting the addiction. Episode 2 of the Quitting Nicotine Crash Course. We're going to be talking about mindset. This might be the most important thing I talk about here. This is going to be just a very boiled down version, but I have a lot of other videos on mindset that you guys can look through. You need to firmly grasp the fact that you have literally nothing to lose in quitting. You only have things to look forward to. And I hear you, peach ice exists, I know. But let's be honest with ourselves here, it's not the peach ice, it's that you're addicted to it. And I know, because whenever I was desperate enough for a fix, I didn't care if it was peach ice or if it was a 2-week-old burnt mint Juul pod. If the burnt old Juul pod was what was available, I would hit that. It wasn't about waiting for the best experience of it. It's because it's not about experience. It's just the mode of delivery for the mindset part 2. As I was saying, the most important thing to understand and the thing that will completely transform your quit is realizing that nicotine literally does nothing for you and it brings nothing to your life. It only takes from your life. The only thing it does for you is relieve the withdrawals that it gave to you in the first place. And it's completely understandable why you would think that nicotine does good things for you, because you feel better directly after hitting it, because in 1 second you're in a state of withdrawal and then the next you're not. So here's baseline. You think that nicotine is elevating your state, right? No, it's just bringing you back to baseline, which is what non-smokers and non-vapors experience all the time. No nicotine. And you might be thinking well, doesn't it give me dopamine? It doesn't do nothing. And yes, the fleeting dopamine boost might have been what got you hooked in the first place, but your body, that's not where the cravings come from. Your body isn't I need my dopamine fix. You can get a dopamine boost from hugging a Squishmallow. What's keeping you in the cycle of addiction is the upregulation of nicotinic acetylcholine receptors, aka your tolerance goes up and your brain makes more insatiable nicotine receptors. Nicotine addiction kind of reminds me of when it came out that all of those lip balm companies were putting dehydrating agents into their products so it would keep you buying more and more and reliant on the product to keep your lips hydrated because you think you needed them, but really they were drying out your lips the whole time. I've been played. Carmex, I trusted you. And they were still getting the credit for hydrating your lips. Evil, but what better way to make a lifelong customer? Welcome to the Quitting Crash Course part 4, I believe. We've all heard the horror stories of people who have quit a long time ago and still have cravings all the time and miss it. And that is precisely the reason why you should not just rely on willpower and you cannot neglect the mental aspect of the addiction. What's the point of quitting if you're just going to be healthier, sure, but unhappy? If you solely rely on willpower and just white knuckle your way through quitting, you're going to resent it. And it's going to be so much harder unnecessarily. And 2, you're just going to end up bitter and jealous of your friends who are still smoking or vaping. There is absolutely a place for willpower and making you stick to your commitment and being able to see it through so you can be a happy non-smoker or vapor, but this does not have to be you. And that is why it's so important to actively reframe how you view the addiction by fully grasping the concepts we just talked about in our last part and fully understanding that there are only benefits and gains waiting for you on the other side and you're not missing out on anything. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. It's not a requirement to feel that passion for quitting every second. And there are definitely hard moments, but you do not have to be miserable. Here's what you can expect during the first 72 hours of quitting nicotine, also known as the withdrawal period. Welcome to episode 5 of the Quitting Crash Course. The first 3 days of your quit are definitely the hardest. It's pretty downhill once you get to that point, but it's nothing you can't handle, and we're going to prepare right now. This is when those cravings are going to be at their peak because the nicotine is physically leaving your body, your bloodstream. So those hungry nicotine receptors are going to be doing what they can to get you to feed them. Don't listen, hang in there, it'll be okay. While everyone is completely different and a lot of people actually don't experience any withdrawal symptoms at all, a few symptoms to look out for potentially: trouble sleeping, fatigue, just general low energy, irritability, headaches. It's really common to have cold-like symptoms. People call this quitter's flu. It's just your body's way clearing everything out. So don't freak out if this happens to you. Your body is just healing itself. It's okay. But again, it really, really varies from person to person. So do your own research on this, but don't go down the WebMD wormhole and psych yourself out. I promise if you can handle a cold, you can handle this. See part 2 for tips about how to make this the easiest it can be. Oh my god. After years of making fairy houses as a kid, I'm like, am I healing my inner child right now? Welcome to part 6 of the quitting nicotine crash course. We're going to be talking about the withdrawal period today and just some general tips to make it as easy as possible. Last part, we talked about how the symptoms may vary from person to person, but also your approach may need to vary depending on what kind of person you are. So for me, it was best for me to take a little bit of extra time to recover, relax, just focus on rest, healing. But for other people, that might be the absolute wrong approach. It might drive them crazy. Some people need to stick to a routine, keep busy to pass the time. But either way, during this time, I would try to support your body as much as you can. Get some light exercise in, eat good foods, try to sleep more. Your body immediately gets to work healing for you, so you want to support it during this time as much as you can. If I were you during this time, I would definitely avoid drinking for the first few days, maybe the first week or two. Avoid your vapor or smoker friends for a few days. Of course, those aren't non-negotiables. I'm not saying you're gonna fail if you don't do what I did, but as someone who tried and failed many times, I had to make a lot of adjustments, and those are things that I wish I had done from day one, because I probably wouldn't have had to try again so many times. But as always, there's no wrong way to quit. Let's talk about cravings. Personally, I don't think the best way to deal with cravings is just trying to distract yourself, because when you try to stop thinking about something, what do you think about? Whatever the thing is. Cravings are the perfect opportunity for you to actually retrain your brain and reframe how you think about nicotine. Because as you guys already know, quitting nicotine is definitely a mental battle. Cravings can come in all different shapes and sizes. It's not always going to be a physical feeling. Sometimes it can look like your brain being like, maybe now's not the best time to quit, maybe I should just give up. Thoughts and feelings that try to get you to break your quit, that is not you. That's not your frontal lobe talking, which is responsible for all higher level brain functions, the part of your brain that you know is you, your conscious thoughts, perception, decision making. That signaling is essentially psychological garbage, and it comes from a deeply, deeply irrational part of your brain that's only concerned with survival, the lizard brain. The lizard brain doesn't know that going without nicotine is not a threat to your survival, so it's going to be throwing you those uncomfortable signals of cravings, but you don't have to listen to it and feed into it, which makes it way worse. In part 8, we're going to be talking about how to reframe your thoughts and redirect the craving to actually benefit you.
Well, you just described the first step. The first step in learning to attach dopamine to the effort process,
That was a clip from a podcast where a neuroscientist was asked his best tips for learning how to change your behavior and hack your brain. His response was, attach dopamine to the effort process. Y'all should definitely go listen to that podcast. I'll leave it linked somewhere. It was really interesting, but essentially what he's saying is basically learn to condition yourself with positive reinforcement to get your brain to do what you want to do. Within the context of quitting nicotine, that is exactly what the goal of reframing the narrative of your cravings is. And actually use cravings to retrain your brain in the process and start to enjoy quitting. It might seem intimidating and kind of sciencey, but it's actually really, really simple. All you have to do is redirect your internal dialogue to something that is uplifting. And I know it sounds so simple, and this isn't about lying to yourself and, positivity, woo-woo, no, this is, you're actively creating new neural pathways and training your brain when you do this. Okay, so here's a quick example of what that might look like. So you could have a craving and you're having all of these thoughts of anxiety and dread and just I can't do this, it's never gonna end, After you've gone through what we talked about in the last video, say to yourself something along the lines of, hey, maybe this sucks in this moment, but at least I'm doing something that I've been wanting to do for so long. I'm so proud of myself, and thank God I don't have to be controlled by flavored air anymore. And you know what? I welcome this craving because that's a sign that the nicotine receptors in my brain are dying off. So the craving is essentially a sign that my brain chemistry is healing and I'm one step closer to being where I want to be. And it's okay if you don't necessarily feel that physical uplifting feeling. It's about consistency. Every time matters. You might not think it makes a difference, but it does, I promise.